All right, so we're diving into the suffragettes,
Oh, yeah.
but not just the basics like you might already know.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at something a little bit different.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's how historians kind of look at all the different things that the suffragettes did and try to like categorize them. Yeah,
Exactly.
on a scale of how militant were these actions.
That's right. They weren't all just, you know, holding signs and having rallies.
Exactly.
They did a lot of different types of things to get their point across.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be looking at today in this deep dive.
Right.
Kind of a
Like a scale.
yeah, like a scale of 1 to 5 of how militant these different actions
Yeah,
were.
because it helps us understand the movement better.
Right. And some of them might really surprise you.
Oh,
Where they
absolutely.
fall on the scale.
Yeah, you might think one thing, but then when you really look at it,
Yeah.
it might be another.
Yeah. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
before we jump into all the crazy examples, can you kind of like lay out for us what exactly are these 5 levels?
Okay, sure. So level 1 is the least militant,
Okay.
and it's called like verbal protest or like symbolic action.
Okay.
And it's really just like making a statement, but peacefully.
Right.
Like things that would fall into that category would be like writing letters
Mm-hmm.
to like newspapers or politicians, or like organizing peaceful marches,
Gotcha.
raising money for the cause, or even like wearing certain colors
Oh, okay.
to show your support.
Like their sashes, right?
Yeah.
The purple, white, and green.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's level 1.
Uh-huh.
Pretty peaceful, pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Okay. What about level 2?
Okay, so level 2 is called civil disobedience or nonviolent resistance.
Okay.
So this is where people are deliberately breaking a rule or law
Okay.
to make a point,
Okay.
but they're still not resorting to violence.
So it's like the sit-ins and stuff.
Yeah,
It's just blocking traffic.
Yep. And like they knew they were breaking the rules and
Yeah.
were prepared to face the consequences.
Okay.
But they didn't, they weren't hurting anyone.
Gotcha. So they were disobeying but peacefully.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when does it start to get a little less peaceful?
A little more exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that would be level 3.
Okay.
And that's property damage or minor acts of violence.
Oh. Wow.
So this is where, they're going beyond just words
Okay.
and peaceful disruption. So this could be things like breaking windows, graffiti,
Right.
maybe some scuffles that don't result in like serious injuries,
Gotcha.
or even setting small fires.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So things are starting to escalate a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But it doesn't sound like I mean, it sounds disruptive, but it doesn't sound like they're trying to
Right.
really hurt people.
Right. The goal is still
Yeah.
like disruption and making a really strong statement.
Yeah.
But it can get a little messy.
All right, level 4.
All right, level 4.
Now we're talking.
So
Serious violence and threats of violence.
Yeah. So this is like with a clear intent to cause harm
Okay.
or injury.
Okay.
So this could be riots that turn violent,
Oh, good.
bomb threats,
Wow.
death threats,
Oh.
or even like forming groups that act like almost like small armies.
So now the gloves are off.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just about making a statement. It's about
It's about
causing like damage or fear.
yeah, like forcing change through
Yeah.
fear and intimidation.
Okay, so that's level 4.
Uh-huh.
And that brings us to the big one.
The big one, level 5.
Level 5.
The most militant.
Widespread violence, terrorism, war.
Yeah, thankfully we don't see a lot of examples of
You know
this
what people say.
from the suffragettes.
Yeah.
But this category is for things like suicide bombings,
Right.
organized terrorist attacks,
Yeah.
and of course war.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's really about using extreme violence to achieve political goals.
Right. And that's definitely not what the suffragettes were
Right.
advocating for.
Yeah, not generally, but
Yeah.
it's good to have this range.
To understand where things fall.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So now we kind of have that framework
Right.
of those 5 levels.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a few.
Oh, you got some examples.
Yeah, I've got some examples,
Awesome.
and I really want to get your take on where you think they fall.
Oh, this will be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah. Are you ready to dive in?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Great.
I'm ready. So, first example.
Okay, hit me.
All right. In 1905, Christabel Pankhurst, she was a big name in the movement.
Uh-huh.
She actually spat at a policeman.
Oh, wow.
Where do you think that falls on our scale?
Spitting Well, it's definitely not level 1,
No.
but I don't think it's like level 4 serious violence, so
You're thinking in the right
maybe level 3?
area. Yeah.
Okay.
It's considered level 3.
Okay.
Property damage, minor acts of violence.
Yeah, I mean, it's not property, but
Yeah. It's
it's
that
kind of
it's that minor act
aggression, yeah.
of aggression, right?
Yeah, okay, interesting.
And also, back then, spitting was like
Oh, yeah.
a huge sign of disrespect.
Yeah. Oh,
So it carried like a lot more weight than it might today.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. How about this one? Suffragettes chaining themselves to the railings,
Ooh.
and specifically the ones at 10 Downing Street.
Bold move.
Yeah, the Prime Minister's residence.
Very bold move.
Where would you put that?
That's a classic example of level 2.
Okay.
Civil disobedience, nonviolent resistance.
Right, right. Because they're not hurting anybody. They're
Exactly.
just being a nuisance.
Yeah. Yeah, they're making it really hard to ignore them.
Right, like you could ignore our letters, but you can't ignore us when we're
Chained to your door. Like,
yeah.
okay. All right. How about this one's a little trickier.
Okay.
Teresa Garnett attacking Winston Churchill with a whip in 1909, and she actually hit him in the face.
Yeah, that's level 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Serious violence, threats of violence.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really argue with that.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, she meant business.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
All right. This next one is a tough one.
Okay.
Emily Wilding Davison
Yes.
stepping in front of the king's horse at the Epsom Derby in 1913.
Right.
And of course, this led to her death.
Right.
So where does an action like that fall?
Yeah, this is one that historians still debate about today because it's, we can't know for sure what her intentions were.
Right, right.
But because it was, a life-threatening act and
Yeah.
and resulted in a fatality, it's most likely classified as a level 5.
Wow, level 5, okay.
It's really
It's intense.
intense, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also like, it really shows the risk that some of these women were willing to take.
Absolutely. Yeah, they believed in this so strongly.
Yeah.
And it also shows that even within the movement,
Yeah.
they didn't all agree
Right.
on how far to go.
On the tactics.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, some thought this was way too far.
Uh-huh.
But others felt like it was a necessary act of defiance.
So even though they had this common goal, there was still debate
Oh, yeah, for sure.
about how to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it shows how complex this all was,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't simple.
It wasn't just black and white. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we've been looking at some of the more extreme examples,
Right.
but our research also mentions some things that are much lower on the scale.
Okay.
For instance, in 1908, members of the WSPU,
Mm-hmm.
the Women's Social and Political Union, they actually gave up luxuries and took on extra work
Wow.
to raise funds for the cause.
Okay.
So where would something like that fall?
Yeah, that's a great example of level 1.
Okay.
Verbal protest, symbolic action.
Well-
They were making a statement,
Yeah.
but in a peaceful way.
Right. It wasn't about confrontation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then one last one.
Okay.
In 1906, 300 women, they tried to lobby members of Parliament,
Mm.
but only 20 were allowed inside.
Mm.
What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's definitely level 1 as well.
Okay.
It was a peaceful attempt to engage with the system
Right?
and to, have their voices heard,
Yeah.
but of course they were shut out.
Right. It's like they were trying to play by the rules.
Right. But the rules were
The
rigged.
rules were rigged. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is part of what led to that frustration.
Right. Right.
That pushed some towards more militant action.
Yeah. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
The more they were shut down,
Mm-hmm.
the more extreme.
The more they felt they had to be.
Yeah. The more they felt like they had to
Wow.
do something to be heard.
Absolutely.
Wow. This is bringing up so many thoughts. Like,
Yeah.
how did people back then react to
Yeah.
all of this? Like
Like the public.
yeah, the public. Were they supportive?
Right.
Or were they like, what are these women doing?
That's a great question, and
Oh.
and one that we'll definitely dig into more.
Okay.
But I think it's time for us to take a little break,
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
and we'll come back and talk all about public opinion.
So we've seen how the suffragettes, weren't afraid to push the boundaries.
Right.
But how did everyone else feel about that?
Yeah. Good question.
Like, was the public on their side?
Well, you got to remember,
Yeah.
this was a time when, women were expected to be very ladylike,
Right.
not causing a stir. So a lot of people.
Especially not, hitting politicians with whips.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, for many people, it was quite a shock to see these women behaving in such a radical way.
Yeah, yeah.
They were seen as unfeminine, disruptive,
Right.
even dangerous.
Yeah.
And the press, the newspapers, they often made things worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they would portray these women as hysterical,
Oh, I bet.
irrational,
Yeah, yeah.
which obviously didn't help their cause.
Right, right.
But it wasn't all bad.
Okay.
There were also people, men and women, who really admired the suffragettes' courage.
Yeah.
They saw how unfair it was that
Yeah.
women couldn't vote.
Yeah.
And they realized that peaceful methods, well, they just hadn't worked.
Right, right.
So for these people, the suffragettes' more militant actions, they were like a wake-up call.
Yeah, it's like they were finally paying attention.
Exactly. They had to,
Yeah.
because it was right there in their faces.
Yeah, yeah. And it really made them confront this issue of women's suffrage.
So even though it's controversial,
Mm-hmm.
it did kind of
It got people talking.
get people talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thinking about it. Okay,
Yeah.
so the suffragettes, they really did manage to,
They shook things up.
shake things up
Big time.
and change the conversation.
Yeah, and, their legacy goes way beyond just the right to vote.
Really?
Yeah, they inspired so many other activists
Oh, wow.
to fight for all sorts of causes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they showed the world that sometimes you have
Yeah.
to be willing to push the boundaries
Yeah.
to really make a difference.
And face the consequences.
Exactly.
It's pretty powerful.
It is. It's really inspiring.
So I think, thinking about all of this, the different tactics, the public reaction,
Yeah.
it really makes you wonder, like, what would I have done
Right.
if I were there
Yeah. What would you have done
back then?
if you were a suffragette? Yeah, like, would I have been on the front lines?
Would you have chained yourself to a railing?
Yeah. Would I have been more peaceful?
Would you have written letters?
Yeah.
Or maybe donated money?
It's hard to know.
It is. It's a tough question.
Yeah, but it's a good one to think about.
It is, yeah. It makes you really appreciate
Yeah.
the courage of these women.
Yeah. And the sacrifices they made.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, that's it for our deep dive into the suffragettes.
Wow, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a fascinating journey.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
I did too. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And to all of you listening out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.